if you had 50 other running backs on the same level as Barry Sanders, you'd have no one to talk about as a running back.
I don't know. I don't know what that means as far as
Barry Sanders is superior to the other running backs of his era, way
right.
superior, and that was good for football. That's what I'm trying to say. Great plays. Look, the Yankees. We talk about Aaron Judge coming in, Otani, superstar players. That's good for baseball. If all the players in baseball won the same exact level, above average, and that's it, the game wouldn't be as exciting.
Well, let me ask you a question. If other teams could afford these players, then you would have you would have a point as far as media, as far as every team being a certain level. Some teams just can't afford to be dynasties. So is that fair to them that they can't get the players that the Yankees can get, or the Mets can get, or that the Dodgers can get?
Let me ask you: is sports supposed to be fair?
No. Morning, guys. By the way, I know, long time no see.
Welcome to the show. Yeah, I'm glad to have you. Nice to see you pop up. It's great to have you here.
I'm going to give this to Pags in a sense. Let's compare the Philadelphia market to a market that's close by, Washington. Philadelphia, I believe, would have a much greater fan base than the Washington area. If you have more fans, what's wrong with a little bit of favoritism towards those teams? They should be allowed to spend more, and put themselves in a better position to win if they have a lot more fans.
I go back and forth with this. I mean, the Phillies forever used to consider themselves a small market team. And then they realized that they could make a lot more money if they actually spent the money on the field. If they have a good team on the field and a good product, they have, let's say last year they had 22,000 fans going into the stadium. This year they've got like 30,000 plus. And that's a big difference. You know what I mean? So every market can do exactly that. Like in Kansas City, when they had a good team, they were selling out the stadium. It gives them more money to be able to spend more money. The problem is that ownership don't want to spend the money because they want to keep it.
The thing is, the CEO of the sports do not want dynasties. That's why you get the first round picks.
See, I'll disagree. I think they do. I think teams make more money when the Yankees come to town. The teams always sell out. Their biggest audiences are always when the Yankees come in. Why is that? Because the Yankees are a big draw. Why is that? Because the Yankees were a dynasty and they're always good. People want to root for or against the Yankees. Why are the Cowboys always a big draw? Because of their history. Because people want to root for or against them.
Then why are the CEOs making it so with the first round draft picks that the worst teams are getting the best players coming out of college?
I think that's I personally dislike that formula, to be honest with you, because I think you should reward excellence. I think there is a push from teams to try to even it out, but I think the good of the sport isn't. I think Jack was trying to say this. If the sports were absolutely balanced, and if there were 30 teams in every sport, and you knew that your team would win a pennant, a World Series, a championship, a Stanley Cup, or whatever, once every 30 years, that would be terrible. Nobody would have fun with that sport. Oh, look, we won this year. Good. Well, we'll see you again in 2053. We'll win it again that year. That's no fun. You want your team to win every year, and every owner should be pushing for his team to win every year. Yeah, go on.
And Doc, Pags mentioned with Kansas City, for example, a disadvantage. Since the Yankees won the World Series last in 2009, the Kansas City Royals have been back twice. In 2014, they lost in 7 games, and they won it all, beating the Mets in 2015. So as far as the small market stuff, and if you look at the standings, the Orioles are ahead of the Yankees now.
Tampa Bay too. So, Tampa Bay's a small market.
Tampa Bay, small market.
For years, we heard that the Astros were a small market. They win all the time, right? They've been. I could pull up the stats. It's been many, many years, and they've had a couple of world championships. All right, they cheated once or whatever, but still, they used to. Oh, Houston, they can't compete. Well, I guess they can.
But then you have a team like Oakland. and think about what they're doing over there now. Where that ownership never wanted to spend any money. But for a long time, that's a storied franchise. I mean, they've have world
In the 70s.
championships. They
Yeah,
have,
in the 70s.
and even before that. I mean, it's like I've been doing a little bit of history. The A's, when they were in Philadelphia, won more championships and had been to the World Series, many more times. The Phillies still haven't caught up. You know what
That's
I mean?
true.
So
And then they sold all their players, and then they brought back a great team. That was the late 20s, and then they sold all their players. Or that team got old. They
and then
brought
still
like
and then
Ty
still
Cobbin
went back, and then
and then-
still made it back.
not after that late 20 run, I don't think.
No, that's actually not true. They once they started to go to Shibe Park, it was Connie Mack that kind of sold off all the team, but then they had another resurgence. Only because I've been doing history on this right now. So,
Well, the
Yeah.
Phillies did go to the World Series last year. They won it in 2008. They won in 2009 to the series. So, I mean, they've had more success than, the statistical average would say that they should.
No, Pags, what happened was the A's were great in the early years. They went to the World Series in 1910, 1911, 1914. They won all three of those World Series. They lost in 1913. They lost in 1914. Then they were bad. And then they got good again in the late 20s. This was a team that beat the Yankees in 29. They won the World Series. 30, they won the World Series. 31, they lost the World Series. And then they were terrible. They didn't reach the World Series again until 1972, when they were in Oakland.
got you.
All
I know
right,
that when they went to Kansas City as the Kansas City A's, that's when, I know that they weren't very good over there.
And that team, had a history of selling off or trading their best players to the Yankees. And, there was a criticism in those years that Kansas City was a major league, minor league franchise for the Yankees. A lot of great Yankee players came from the Kansas City A's over the years, including Roger Maris. I mean, we could go down the list, but we don't have
Well,
time
they were
for
like
that.
a farm system for the Yankees.
Yeah.
In the 50s, Kansas City. Yeah.
So let's go to football and let's talk about exciting sports and stuff like that. What do you think is more exciting, opening day or the Super Bowl?
Let me just say, when I first saw this question, I thought it was ridiculous. It was a foolish question. But then the more I looked at it, it actually made sense. It actually made sense, and it's a good question. I mean, there's nothing more exciting than Super Bowl itself. I think the question should have been slightly tweaked. What do you look more forward to as a fan? Opening day of the NFL season or the Super Bowl? And that's a great question. And I think it's opening day. In the beginning, it seemed like a slam dunk. Oh, of course, the Super Bowl. Nothing compares to the Super Bowl. But as football fans, what do we look forward to? We can't wait until opening day. We look at the schedule. We're psyched. Once we get to the Super Bowl, unless our team is in it, it's a 2-week wait. In that first week, we don't want to know from football. We want to forget about it. We want to break. And then we wake up a few days before the Super Bowl and we start getting maybe psyched for the game. But I think it's opening game. I mean, good, very good question here. To me, I'm looking forward to the start of the NFL season. It's so unpredictable what's going to happen. You look at the slate of games and you wonder whose dreams are going to get crushed, which team's going to be the big surprise. And my Jets, how good they're going to be with Aaron Rodgers. You just can't wait. I know Mac with the Giants is looking forward to it. So, and the feeling, Doc, in baseball, there's a certain special feeling about opening day that, there's nothing like it. It's like getting a new car. By the second game of the season, it's like you've driven it out of the lot. It's not quite the same. The second day you use that car. So I say, the opening day start of the NFL season, to me, that's the thing I look, more forward to. And I think most NFL fans look more forward to the start of opening day than they do to the Super Bowl itself.
I think that's a great point. You go, Mac.
Yeah, listen, I've interviewed professional football players in the book I'm putting together. Opening day to them, there was so much pressure, there was so much stress for that first game to get it out and get that first hit to what that felt like, the smell of the field, all everything that all their hopes and dreams of being a player are pinned on, not the Super Bowl, but that game, the feeling they get when they go out there and finally get to hit another player on another team. So I think it's opening day. The Super Bowl, as Jack said, this is, of course, the Super Bowl is a event. The two best teams supposedly in the
Thanks,
league.
Rick.
It's a huge event. So I would also go with the opening day.
I'll disagree with you both. I'm not a big football fan, of course, but even baseball, opening day's great. The game then ends. If the team wins, you go, all right, well, it was just one win. If they lose, you go, well, they still have a long season ahead of them. I get more excited for Game 7 of the World Series if the Yankees were there than I would about opening day. Absolutely. I always look forward to the Yankees winning the World Series. But in football, I'm not a big football fan, like a diehard. I watch it. But if I miss opening day, I'm not worried about that. I just look at the score. Oh, good, they won. In fact, will I watch the Jets? I'm a Jet fan from the early 80s who doesn't care as much about the team now. Will I watch opening day? I'll probably watch opening day. Will I follow the Jets a lot this year unless they're going and playing really well and getting close to the Super Bowl? Probably not. If the Jets are 4-4, I'm not going to watch the game in week 9 or whatever. Well, looks like Aaron Rodgers didn't really pan out. If the Jets are 6-2, yeah, I'll watch the game. That's a fair weather fan, exactly, 100%. But I will care about the Super Bowl. I'll watch it. I'll get excited about it. I'll look at both teams. I'll decide which team I'm going to root for. On opening day, whether I watch the game or not is
Can I tell you guys a little funny opening day story? I
sure.
go to a New York Met opening day, okay, years ago at Shea Stadium. But I went there all alone because as a baseball fan, just to catch the game all alone. But I have on a Yankee jacket. The Yankees aren't playing the Mets, but I get there a little late. Parking's tight. There's one spot. There's a whole bunch of Met fans helping me get in the spot. A great humanitarian gesture, but they don't see the Yankee jacket because I had the heat on in the car, was off and all. And I'm worried when I get out of the car, if they see me with the Yankee jacket, my car might get vandalized. So I crinkle up the jacket and I'm like this, getting out of the car, walking when no one could see it's a Yankee jacket. And, once they help me, and then when I get, far away from them, I finally put the jacket on and I wear it watching the game. But what would have happened with my car if I just proudly got out with my Yankee jacket? The Yankees weren't too well liked by Met fans. Not that they're liked by Met fans today, but do you think there's an outside chance my car could have gotten vandalized, especially after they helped me? They would have felt betrayed, helping the enemy.
I think we have to give the fans credit. I think they would have
Yeah.
just said, "Oh, look, the guy writes the Yank." They might have given you a hard
They
time.
thought they were helping a fellow Met fan. Pull into
They
the
might
spot.
have said, "You Yankees stink, you stink." But
Philly
would
fans would have
they have
vandalized
vandalized
my
your
car.
car? I don't know. But Pags,
So
what do you look forward more to? Opening day of football or the Super Bowl?
Well, when our Eagles are playing the Super Bowl, when they're not playing opening day.
That's not what I said.
Yeah, well, that's anyone. No. Let's be honest about it. If your team is in the Ultimate Series, World Series, Super Bowl, you look more forward to that. I'm talking about
So I will say this: going into
talking about.
this year, when there is so much hype about this season, I want the season to start so that, like, I want to be able to get to the end. So I'm excited for the season to begin because there is so much hype about it. If the Eagles came out and lost 3 games, my excitement for the season is going to dwindle, exponentially. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, well, obviously we're not as good as we thought we were. And it's, when you're 3 or 4 games in, it's not as simple to think that you're going to be able to make that run.
So
However,
you're saying,
we
Pat,
think that they're going to be making this run throughout the entire time.
so if
So
the Eagles can't get to the Super Bowl and you have your choice between the Giants or Cowboys to put into the Super Bowl, which of the two would you want to see in the Super Bowl? If you could only have that choice, Giants or Cowboys, which would you pick to go?
I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care. At that point, I'd be checked out. So either one of them could. It wouldn't matter to me. I could care less because I wouldn't. I wouldn't watch. I wouldn't be rooting. I wouldn't have a rooting interest.
Would you have a rooting interest against them?
See, once my team is out, I don't have, I don't like the Cowboys. Obviously, the Cowboys suck, and so do the Giants. That being said, when it comes to, the Giants versus the Patriots, and the Patriots are going for an undefeated season, I have I was rooting for the Giants because I didn't want to see the Patriots have.
But it's that way with Doc, too. When the Yankees lost to Houston last year, I'm sure Doc didn't watch as much of the Houston-Philly series as he would if the Yankees are playing. Doc's watching it. He's really psyched. Come on, Doc. You weren't psyched for Houston and Philadelphia. At that point, all the air went out of the balloon.
Yeah, I don't usually watch the World Series unless the Yankees are in it. I have to be honest.
There you go. There you go.
Homers. Don't you appreciate the game anymore? I mean,
my father always says this. A
my God.
lifetime Red Sox fan. He always says, "I love baseball."
There you go.
And I always
love
respond,
football.
"I love the Yankees." That's where my rooting
terrible.
interest is. I don't love
That's
baseball. I love
terrible.
the Yankees.
That's terrible. I know Jack's with me. I know Jack loves sports. Whether his team is in it or not, he's watching the game, especially a World Series or Super Bowl. I would imagine he's watching the games just for the love of the sport.
Well, the TV's on for the World Series. Whether I'm
See, now
watching
I
the
could
game,
do that.
that's
I could do that
another
for
matter.
hockey.
If my team's
Right.
not in.
I could do that for hockey. Baseball's harder to do that for. You have to have a rooting interest, I think. I love watching good hockey in general. Even though the Stanley Cup was only in 5 games and it kind of went the way I thought it would, it was still great to watch. It was exciting to watch, even though those games were very lopsided. Even it was good to watch good hockey being played. Watching good baseball in October, once your team is out, it's hard to watch just the rest of it. It's it's maybe it'll be a little bit different this year because of the pitch clock and because of the way they do things. However, it's I remember being in Atlanta and watching the Astros Mariners game that went 17 innings. And it was all season long we had that ghost runner. And then in the playoffs, they take that away and they can't score a run. All of a sudden, everything that you did all season long has to change because there's no more ghost runner. You actually have to push the run across. And they go 17 innings. And you get something that you haven't seen all year long. It was exciting because the Phillies were in it. It would have been exciting because, hey, you had a 17-inning game in the playoffs. Every pitch becomes really important in general. But short of that, when the Yankees were playing against Houston, I didn't care. In fact, I was kind of rooting for Houston.
Yeah, I see. Each game, I invest so much into the Yankees, right? I'm watching the Yankees. I want to watch them win. I want to watch them succeed. I write about them every single day. I do 2 different podcasts on this network about the Yankees. Once the Yankees are done, I'm toast. I couldn't care less. Now in football, I don't have a team that I really care about passionately. So I like watching good football. So when the playoffs come, I'll watch the games. If it's the Ravens against the Houston whatever, yeah, it sounds good to
I got to
me. I'll
get you an
watch it.
Eagles jacket then. Since you don't have a rooting interest, you're an Eagles fan, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, deep down, I'm a Jets fan because that's the team that I used to love, but yeah, sure. Give me my daughter-in-law is actually a big Eagles fan. Get me an Eagles jacket. I'll give it to her. She'll be thrilled.
There you go.
I think opening day, just because everybody starts at zero, everybody has that one chance, or at least they think they have a chance at going to the Super Bowl. And there's nothing like it for fans everywhere. I don't care how bad the team is. They all think they got that chance to go to the Super Bowl. And if you think about the worldwide growth overseas of football, it's becoming bigger all the time. So, yeah.
It's a great question. I think Jack was going to say something. No, Jack?
No,
Yes?
no, no. I was yawning, actually. Let's get on
All
the
right,
next-
ladies and gentlemen, tune into the Saturday Debate Show where we have the best yawns. Definitely, if you looking for yawns, tune in. All right, so let's move on to something totally different. Looking at, I guess it's more about college football compared to the NFL. Two of the legendary teams, neither one who have attained that level of greatness in a long time, but was Notre Dame at its peak as popular as the Cowboys were at their peak? Was Notre Dame ever that big across the country as, America's team, the Cowboys? What do you guys think about that?
Did you tweak the question a little bit, or did I misunderstand it?
Well, I'll read the question. I just
Yeah.
ad-libbed a little bit because I don't like to read while I'm talking. But
Right.
is Notre Dame at its highest popularity as big as the Cowboys at its highest popularity?
I mean, you're talking about different eras. I mean, there's no comparison to today. The Cowboys are so much more popular than Notre Dame. I mean, you take the average kid who's a sports fan, they don't care about Notre Dame at all, but the Cowboys creates a buzz. And if you're talking about back in the day when Notre Dame was the New York Yankees of college football, that's a little different.
I disagree. Every Irish person in the United States has got some type of affinity with Notre Dame. And I can't stand Notre Dame almost about as much as I can't stand the Cowboys. And I don't even watch college. So it's like I am not a fan. They get way too much hype for a team that's only lackluster most of the time. It's like they get all of the television rights and stuff like that. They had their own. The reason why they remained independent for so long was because they were getting television contracts when nobody else was. And even my brother wanted to go to Notre Dame, and I'm like, Notre Dame sucks. Don't go to Notre Dame. You're Italian. So.
Well, the movie Rudy kept the Notre Dame buzz going to an extent. But let me throw this at you. Look at the gear that people wear, kids, adults, the sports clothing, whatever. You'll see you share cowboy caps and shirts. You hardly ever see anything with Notre Dame on it.
Yeah, I never Notre Dame.
I disagree. You know what? You look at tattoos. You got to look for the tattoos. I'd be willing to bet that there are millions, of little Irish guys with their like that. You know what I mean? I'd be willing to bet there's tons of it, and you're not looking hard enough. You can't go to a sporting event, and find them, because most sporting events, everybody's wearing the colors of the teams there. But just walking around, knocking around, going to the bar, you find plenty of Notre Dame apparel.
Yeah. Listen, Notre Dame is my favorite. Notre Dame's my favorite college team of all time. I'm Irish. But if you look at its peak, when you look when they had the Four Horsemen, when they had Knute Rockne giving all those pep talks that were always on sports, and if you look at the subway crowd, the subway fans of Notre Dame, that were out there. That was even before the subway of the Brooklyn Dodger fans were around. College football is the second most popular sport in the country, guys. It's not soccer in the country anyway. It's not baseball. It's not hockey. It's college football. College football gets more TV revenue than anybody besides the NFL. If you think about Joe Montana, Tim Brown, some of the greatest players in college that went to the NFL and succeeded, Joe Theismann, these guys are Hall of Famers. Some of them, Tim Brown and Joe Montana. Notre Dame, believe it or not, at their highest peak, is more popular in the country than the Dallas Cowboys were at their peak.
Years ago, if we're talking about years ago, historically, yes, historically. But if we're talking about currently, no, not even close.
I think it's closer than you think, Jack. I really do.
I agree with that. I agree with that. It's, it's when you think about it, even in social media aspects, and I can't, I'm going to do a quick little search right now as we're talking about it. I know that like the Dallas Cowboys have like 4 million followers on social media. I'm going to see how much Notre Dame has, because I got to imagine that it's probably more, because like I said, if you're Catholic, it's a big deal. It's almost like you're required, like to be Irish Catholic, you have to be a Notre Dame fan. You could be whatever college is your college and Notre Dame.
That's true. That's true. It's almost like it's a second. You have to like Notre Dame because of your religion and stuff. It's crazy. It really is. Doc, what do you think while he's looking it up?
Yeah, I was waiting for Pags to give us the answer there. To be honest, historically, I'm going to side more with Jack. Notre Dame was the story. They were the great team. They haven't been a force in college football. You don't ever hear about them winning anything for decades. And
they've gone to the national championship, Doc.
They went to the playoffs, a year or two ago, the Final Four, but that's about it. But they haven't been a force at all.
I would say going to the playoffs and going to the national championship is being a great team.
They won 1 year to the playoffs.
How many has Dallas won? How many playoffs has Dallas won in the last 30 years?
Right, but Dallas is still considered one of the major teams, one of the premier teams in the NFL as far as marketing and sales and all that kind of stuff. In college, it's really, I think the ones that get the attention are the ones that seem to win. Again, I don't really follow college football, but you never hear about Notre Dame. Yeah, a couple of years ago, they snuck in and maybe they didn't even have a football championship until a couple of years ago, right?
They went to the playoffs. They didn't
the college football playoffs. That's a relatively new invention. When was the last time the Notre Dame won a national championship? When was that?
Wow, who could remember? I can't remember.
I think it was under Lou Holtz.
So, 1970s or something?
Yeah, maybe the 80s?
No, 2001 under Lou Holtz.
We had someone.
I'm going to look this.
Can I say this? Whenever we're watching the games, who's the most famous owner in sports right now? Jerry Jones, probably.
There's no owner. There's no owner.
Jerry Jones.
There's no owner.
I couldn't tell you who
there's no owner in college
football.
There's no
owner.
But
the point is,
and Jerry Jones is out there in the media. Notre Dame is going to get out in the media to try to be popular.
When was the last time Notre Dame had a number one draft choice? When was the last time they had a player that anybody can name? When was the last NFL star? I don't follow it well enough.
Round,
they get players drafted.
Who's the last guy to come from Notre Dame who was a big time star? When was the last time Notre Dame had a Heisman Trophy winner or a Heisman Trophy candidate? I don't think it happens.
Yeah, they
Tim
used
Brown,
to.
I think Tim
Tim
Brown.
Brown, what are we talking about, Matt, 40, 50 years ago? Come on.
Raghib Ismail. I was in school in Wilkes-Barre, and Raghib Ismail was a Wilkes-Barre kid, and they were talking. He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, the Rocket. I mean, that's the last time I ever remembered Notre Dame having a football player that made national attention. That
What was
like
that, the 1980s?
Yeah, that was like 1986, 1987,
Yeah,
something like that. I mean, Notre Dame is as a place where there's great football and great talent and they're a story today, I don't think is a story in that regard. Do they have a lot of the fan base about people who care about them for other reasons? Possibly. Were they one of the big teams in the history of sport? Absolutely. And have the Cowboys been that big? Absolutely. And was Notre Dame at one point when college football was all the rage, one of the biggest teams in the nation? Were they as big as any other team? Sure they were. And were the Cowboys that big? Sure they were. So if the question is, was Notre Dame as big as the Cowboys were at their peak? Sure. I agree with that. Are they relevant today as far as being a football powerhouse or anything? No.
Is Dallas relevant today right now?
Yeah, because people still talk about Dallas. They talk about Dallas all the time.
And they talk about
I tell you what, here's another thing that you could kind of still say why Dallas is relevant. When you find a sports movie that deals with football, every big game in that football movie goes up against Dallas. It's funny. Like you have to watch, you watch Any Given Sunday when Miami is playing in the game to go to the playoffs or whatever, they play against Dallas. When you watch The Replacements, again, these are like fake movies. The last game to get in the playoffs goes up against Dallas. They're not playing even the Cowboys. They're not even wearing the star, but it's always against a Dallas team when it comes to football movies. And that's done purposely, I got to imagine.
Pags, even with the cheerleaders, who takes the lead? The Dallas Cowgirls. I mean, they're like
they are
cheerleaders.
but that was because of what was done in the 70s. You don't really hear about the Cowgirls anymore. It's not as big a deal.
No,
the Dallas Cowboys are relevant for, just because of the way that they were portrayed in the 70s. John Facenda is the reason why the Cowboys are so revered. Because everybody, even if you are a young kid, you hear the voice, America's team. You know what I mean? It was like, come on. They haven't been America's team for over 10,000 days. So.
And you even hear Stephen A. Smith. Who does he trash? The one team he always trashes on his show are the Cowboys. Because it shows.
And then you go the opposite way with what's his face, who's like a Cowboys lover.
Dick Bayless, yeah.
So,
but the point is that the Cowboys they're sent those two guys, the two main sports shows, morning sports shows on TV. The two main hosts, talk about the Cowboys more than any other team.
So what's the better movie, North Dallas 40 or Rudy?
Rudy.
There
you go.
that kept Notre Dame going in the news, a little more so with, even though the football program had slipped, the movie was so popular, people would still be talking up Notre Dame.
Who's the better quarterback, Joe Montana or Roger Staubach?
What does that have to do with anything?
I know, just throwing things out there.
Joe Montana, but Joe Montana at Notre Dame or Joe Montana the 49er?
Roger Staubach, when he played in college, was better than Joe Montana when he played in college.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
In college, not in the NFL.
I don't think so.
Wasn't Heisman?
I know who the better sailor was. The better sailor was definitely Staubach.
No doubt.
Staubach was a Heisman Trophy winner.
Much respect.
Did Montana win a Heisman?
No,
Montana didn't win a Heisman. Staubach did.
There you go.
He did bring him back to beat Texas when Earl Campbell was their running back.
Frank, you're going down the shore I tell you what, tonight I'm going to be at Celebrity Boxing over at the Showboat Casino. If you're going to be down the shore and you want to get in the ring,
that would be awesome. That would be awesome.
You know, we didn't tell Laterzo, otherwise he would have been there.
that's what I'm saying. He said he's headed down the shore.
Frank, there you go. There's your shot. That somebody's got to film that. Somebody.
Oh, there he goes.
Bring
It'll be on pay-per-view. So that's,
Yeah, I know.
I wish Frank would stop asking me for the license plate number, and I always get thrown up. He wants to know the truck that ran over Pag's face, he says to me.
All right, Frank.
Oh, that's an old line from Rocky.
All right, Frank, you've been called out right here on the debate show. You've been called out.
Unbelievable. Great stuff. All right. Speaking of insults and things like that, there's a great question. I will read the question exactly as it was written. Is it good to have that bad boy on your team? You know, the bad guy that everybody roots against. Is that good for your team or is that bad for your team? What do you think?
What's a bad boy exactly? I think I know what you mean, but I think we've got to define
Like
it
a Bill Lamb beer,
an instigator. It's one of the instigators.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Like that's
who's that guy on the Bulls with the
Dennis
Rodman? Yeah.
Dennis Rodman could play though. That was the thing. He's a great rebounder. You know, Bill Lamb.
And realistically, he wasn't a bad boy either. Like he had a very unique public lifestyle, but he was actually a great player on the court.
Yeah, but then you look at the Dylan Brooks on the Memphis Grizzlies. The Grizzlies cut him at the end of the year. He said LeBron was nothing, this and that. He was taunting LeBron, and then he got lit up in the playoffs. And they released him, even though he had a decent year, you know, as a good defensive player. You know, it depends on the guy. Draymond Green, he falls under that category, bad boy. I'd say all in all, the answer is yes, it's good to have these guys on your team. You talk about hockey. They're known as the goons, the enforcers. They could keep other players, you know, on the other team in line.
No, goon and enforcer is somebody different. You're talking about like an instigator. And I tell you, there have been a number of instigators that I have hated throughout the years, you know, especially when it comes to hockey. A guy named Claude Lemieux, whose son now plays for the Flyers. I tell you, I still can't stand that guy. It triggers anger in me. But he was such a good player, you know, and all he could do was win championships. I don't know how many times that guy's name is on the cup, but it's like he was such a bastard. You know what I mean? He was like a little bit of a dirty player, a little bit of a cheap shot, but had a lot of talent. And all he did, like he went and I think he won 3 Stanley Cups in a row with 2 different teams. He was in Jersey, went to Colorado, went back to Jersey, won 3 cups in a row. Like it was just, you know, and I think of Matthew Barnaby, and I think of like guys like that. And then when you think of the bad boys, I mean, you know, like when you think about basketball, I think of like Rick Mahorn and Lambeer and stuff like that, where they were able to kind of, you know, bully their way through some. You know what I mean? And the bullying actually wins you games. I think that's what Draymond Green is. You know what I mean? He's able to bully his way to wins in certain cases. You almost wish that somebody on the Sixers, if the Sixers had that type of player, somebody who was very gritty, you know, and PJ Tucker almost fits that bill. Just not gritty enough, I think. I don't think he's as strong of a offensive player to be looked at into that same realm. But I think it's great to have those types of players on the team.
But I think you get that in baseball to an extent with pitchers. For example, Roger Clemens was a bad boy, even though one of the all-time great pitchers, because if you threw at someone on his team, that team knew. I mean, the other team knew Clemens is going to retaliate, and he might hit you in the head. There was a certain fear factor. when it came to Roger Clemens, Randy Johnson, these guys who have this nasty edge to them on the mound. To me, they're bad boys, even though they were Hall of Fame pitchers, Roger Clemens and Randy Johnson.
I think having a bad boy on a team can also play against you, where it causes the other team to play harder, as you saw, with LeBron versus the guy there that Jack was talking about. All of a sudden, he starts playing harder and they win. The bad boy can get ejected. Draymond Green got ejected a few times. That can hurt the team too. So having a bad boy is good to a point. But I don't know if I would want a bad boy on my team when he starts distracting from your team and he gets kicked out and
Meta World Peace.
There you go.
Good talent.
Larry
but too much of a problem. Larry Bird, much different player altogether. And he doesn't ever get looked at.
No, Larry Bird used to say about the Pistons, he didn't hate Rick Mahorn. He didn't mind him. Rick Mahorn was a bad boy along with Bill Lambert. They teamed up together. He said, Rick Mahorn would knock me on my butt, but they were hard, clean hits. But Bill Lambert would try to injure me. That's why Larry Bird hated Bill Lambert.
Yeah, they got into a couple good fights, Bird and him, that's for sure.
And the funny thing about it, Larry Bird's mother loved Isaiah Thomas and Bill Lambert. The guys Larry Bird hated because she was fans from their time in Indiana.
But Larry Bird knew how to get under people's skin. He was great at that. He was a great smack talker and knew how to just really piss you off. He could he would be making shots and then getting under your skin and just and literally and throwing your game off just because he was able to do that, just because of how good he was. That's kind of fun to watch. When you think about some of the wars that the Celtics and Sixers had, and I still think of the fight that him and Dr. J had. I mean, they fought in the third quarter. Larry Bird already had 40 points and was just talking. And Doc didn't have an answer. And just eventually they wound up fighting.
Yeah, that would be one of the great questions. The greatest, I hate the term trash talkers. Maybe we could get another word instead of that. The greatest trash talkers in sports history. I mean, Larry Bird might be number one when you think of it. I mean, what other player talked more nonsense and can back it up? You have a lot of guys talk, but who can actually back it up? And I'm not talking about a comment made before the game, like with Joe Namath guaranteeing a victory. That's not trash talk, because once the game began, there was no talk. But now, especially in the NBA, talking's going on all the time.
Well, there's a lot of talk with the NFL receivers and cornerbacks in the NFL.
Yeah.
So that's where a lot of trash talking is happening now.
The sensitivities, like with Dennis Eckersley, he would strike someone out and point, to them. I mean, do we find anything wrong with that? I think there are too many sensitivities in sports. Like if a guy hits a home run, Mickey Mantle used to say he kept his head down because he didn't want to embarrass the pitcher. I don't mean you want to get out of hand, You want to do it in a sportsmanlike way, but you should be able to show enthusiasm.
Hey, pitchers are just as bad. They strike somebody out and stuff like that. So it goes both ways.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, sorry about that. Looked like we had some technical difficulties, but I am back again, and I think we have time for one more question. So the question is, let me get that question up here. To use Billy Ball or not? That's the question. To use Billy Ball or to not use Billy Ball? That is the question. It's like Hamlet, to be or not to be. That is the question. I like the way it was worded. Billy Ball, I think that's the question. Is it Mac? Billy Bean is more of the analytics, the Moneyball stuff, or did you mean Billy Ball like when Billy Martin was running the Oakland A's?
No, I met Billy Bean. I finally got to watch Moneyball to see what all all the big deal was about. It was pretty interesting, having an economic guy be his assistant GM, putting all the equations together and working on the analytics, and walk as good as a hit, which we all know anyway. So that wasn't a big thing. The thing I don't like about analytics is that it's a base thing. And when you play a game, it never goes there's never a base thing, right? Things happen during the game. Somebody gets walked, somebody gets hit by a pitch, whatever. Things happen during a game where you need a manager to make a decision, whether to pinch hit somebody, whether to pinch run somebody, whether to bunt or not to bunt. I know Doc was one that used to say, I'll take that out. If you're going to give me a free out when a bunt, I'll take it all the time. And a sacrifice, that's all well and good. And it's true to a point. But if that guy gets up and hits the base hit and 0-0, you lost the game. So there's times when analytics are okay. But me, I like a manager that goes, from coaches from his stomach. I think that's what you need on the field.
Yeah, I think the heart of the analytics, I think you listen to Yankee fans. Yeah, I think this is what frustrates them. The other night they lost to the Mets a day before an off day, but this guy, we didn't want to use him in this situation. We wanted to give him back-to-back days off because we needed to rest him. And I mean, that's all part of that whole analytic, the load management. And this guy's playing because he seems to hit better against this pitcher in this situation. I think it takes some of the human element out of the game. Right, you see the outfielders, they pull the little pieces of paper out. Oh, I have to go here because of this guy. And that's the type of stuff. You'd rather the teams just, put your best against my best. The analytics is obviously a big part of baseball that in any sport. I mean, you hear about it in the NFL, you hear about it everywhere. It's part of understanding the game. It's analyzing the game. It's understanding trends and statistics and putting the best team that way on the field. But it does take some of the human element out, no doubt. So brilliant.
There were two contrasting managers. Earl Weaver liked to play for the big inning. He wasn't into the Billy Ball type philosophy. Billy Martin, one of the great managers in baseball history. No one ever talks of him in that sense. Look at all the places he's managed. He's improved teams wherever he's went, from Minnesota, Detroit, Texas, Oakland, the Yankees. Teams have gotten better with Billy Martin. Every single one of them has gotten better, but because he had this erratic personality, that was his undoing. That's the reason.
Right. They got better for a very brief time. That's actually a great debate question. Did Billy Martin help franchises or did he hurt them? Because as soon as he left, they were in shambles.
But they had a big jump forward. It was remarkable, the jump forward.
He gave them a big boost.
Major, yeah.
And then it wasn't sustainable.
Well, Billy Martin had his drinking problems, as this, as that. He only wanted to be the Yankee manager, and push came to shove. And
he won only one World Series with
but
the
in
Yankees.
This day and age, guys, Billy Ball doesn't work as well as it used to work because they used to manufacture runs, even though that's still good to an extent. We're in a day and age where teams are playing for big innings, in part because pitching staffs aren't as good as maybe they used to be.
Hags, looks like we're getting to the top of the hour. You're going to get the last word on this one.
I think that Billy Moneyball, they never won a World Series. I don't even know if they won a playoff game with Moneyball.
They didn't win a playoff series. Yeah, but right. They were good. But they took it up a level. They exceeded everyone's expectations. The Oakland A's.
That's true. The winning streak. Yep.
My thought is he should have taken the money with the Red Sox.
I agree. There you go. That's 100% right.
Yeah, he should have switched teams. And listen, if you got an idea and you got the plan, then take it on the road.
I agree with that.
He was stymied.
I agree with that. Yeah. And what is Rizzo doing, just real quick, playing second base? The ball's hit to the second baseman. He runs out, fields the ball, and nobody's covering first because that's where he's supposed to be. I don't know what he's thinking.
That was last night's game. You know, the Yankees, talked about this on the Dr. Sem show this morning at 7. They bring in a kid, Matt Crook. And he gives up a grand slam and the game gets out of hand very quickly after that, or that's what made the game out of hand if it wasn't already before he came in. But how is that managing a bullpen and managing a young arm? The kid had been in the major leagues. He had sat in the bullpen for 12 games in a row. And then you bring him in and expect him to get anybody out.
Bases loaded. Bases loaded. That's crazy.
It's just unbelievable. It just that to me is very poor management. You don't bring a kid up and have him sit there. Any job, you don't tell a guy, "Hey, listen, you're on the team or you're in the office. Don't do anything. Just sit in the corner for 2 weeks. And now I need you to finish this right now. Get it done." Like what? You haven't had me do anything for 2 weeks. Now I have to do it. It just doesn't make any sense.
Nuts. Is that
all right, my friends? Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this was the Mac, Jack, Pags, and Dr. Sem Saturday debate show. Lots of great sports talks, lots of great sports people, lots of great thinking and sharing. They'll all be back again here tomorrow with tell us all about it, Mac.
This week in sports, getting closer to the football season, but we'll cover all the things that happen within this week in sports, all the biggest stories, latest things. We'll have Jim Jeffcoat on with us. Pags will be in. Keith will be in. Robert Butler will not be in because he's got something going, and we might have a surprise special guest. We'll see what happens.
Sounds great. Ladies and gentlemen, have yourselves a wonderful Saturday.